Welcome back to another episode of the What Fills Your Cup podcast. I am your host, Riley Alexander. Before you guys watch today's episode with my guest, I wanted to quickly hop on and just kind of explain a tiny bit of what you're about to see and hear. Today's episode is one that is so near and dear to my heart. You are about to meet my very first guest that I ever interviewed. This episode was filmed almost a year ago to the day that you will be watching this. And obviously I have learned so much throughout this past year and even the past few months of interviewing and chatting with people. And so I'm not going to say that this is my best interview. Bear with me. It was the very first interview I ever did. But it is an interview that is so near and dear to my heart that I wanted to release it and share it with you guys. I also would like to note that the audio of this episode is not at all the same quality as my other episodes. Please keep in mind that I was literally backpacking when I filmed this episode, which is so fun to look back on, and even just seeing this video back, it brought so many memories back for me while I was editing it, and I just feel really excited for you guys to see my very first interview and see where it all began. A big part of the reason why I had gone on that trip was because I really wanted to interview someone across the world. You are getting to see the very first interview I ever did in Bali, Indonesia. I just wanted to say the biggest thank you to Luke for hearing me out and ultimately being the very first guest I ever interviewed. And Luke, if you're watching, I just hope you know how much that means to me to this day, how much it meant to me in that point of time of my life. And it was just everything I could have ever imagined. Obviously, looking back, I maybe would have wished I had better microphones, but we got to use what we have at that time, and you're going to see literally the very start of it all. With all that being said, I am so excited for you guys to watch this one. I just really hope you enjoy and meet someone that is really special to me. So thank you.
Luke, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Luke Osey. I am a professional magician, a comedy magician from the UK. I'm from Hertfordshire in England, and I now live in, well, I'd say I live in Edinburgh in Scotland, but I'm currently just going about the world.
That's actually how we met. We met in Ubuud, actually. So we've been together for the past few weeks, which has been so much fun. And Luke was kind enough to want to be the very first guest on my podcast. Right now, we're having a couple of drinks by the pool. We are in a villa in, like I mentioned, Ubuud, which is so beautiful. I'm going to ask you a few questions on what fills your cup.
Yeah, go crazy.
And I would love to know a little bit about your magic, and I would love to hear about how you got into that story and how you entertaining people has brought happiness, or whether that's brought some crossroads down the line. I would love to hear a little bit more about that from you.
Okay, 100%. Start from the beginning. I think I always had like a passion for it. Like, my dad showed me a couple of little card tricks. He had these little tricky packs of cards, like special packs of cards that I'd do tricks. And I was blown away by it from this when I was like 5 or 6. And then I was like, can you teach me? He's like, I don't think you'll be able to get it down because it's a pack of cards. I was like, that's fair enough. And then when I was 7 or 8, maybe, I think I probably got my first proper magic set, like not just like a puppet in a hat. Like, I never used to play with toys. It had to be like a science kit or like something I could do.
Okay.
Like, I was not one to just sit there and play with rubber ducks or whatever kids do. But I think some kids, they get like a police car toy set and they're like, I'm going to be a police car when I'm older. And they get obsessed with that. Or they start getting like dinosaur toys and they're like, I'm going to be an archaeologist or whatever, philanthropist? No, archaeologist.
No, isn't that rocks?
No, yeah, that's rocks.
I don't know.
The dinosaur one.
I have struggled with dinosaurs.
Paleontologist.
Right.
I got a magic set and I was like, this is my career.
Okay.
And I was like, that's what I want to be when I'm older. I think magic became quite cool on TV. You had people like David Blaine, Dynamo. In the UK, you had people like Troy, Ben Hanlon. Like, magic it just kept on getting pumped on TV. Darren Brown, and Penn and Teller. And Penn and Teller started doing a show called Penn and Teller Fool Us, where they'd have, which is a huge show now. I think they've just hit their 10th season. They'd have magicians come on and do a trick and try full Penn and Teller. Great concept for a show, and it was just a completely new idea, because magic has always been like very much hide the secret. So actually to fool someone is a really cool concept.
Yeah.
And when the first season came out, I was watching it, and I would try to work out how they did these tricks. So I was trying to come up with my own ways of doing the tricks I was seeing on TV. And then eventually I joined a magic club called the Young Magicians Club when I was 10 years old. My mum, as a gift, she was like, here you go. And not many members have done this. I did the full 10 to 18, so I did 8 years at this magic club where they would have like workshops and stuff, and I learned so much. It's a great club. If you know someone wants to get into it, it's the most resourceful thing.
That's amazing.
Workshops from top magicians all over the world. They really helped me. And then did that for 8 years. Kind of fell out of it when I was about 15 because I was like, oh, maybe magic isn't cool. And so I never really performed magic until I was 18, 19.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was like just kind of a hobby. And I was always working kind of behind the scenes. So I loved working for other magicians, doing TV stuff, social media, consultancy, stuff like that. And then I started performing. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Now for me, it's all about the laughs. Like hearing people laugh is like so addictive. Just being able to visually see people, you making people happy is an unbelievable skill. So I'm loving like doing the kind of comedy side of it now as well a lot more.
That's also amazing that you have such a supportive group of people surrounding you.
Yeah,
that
my parents are super supportive about it.
That's
like,
amazing.
The most supportive people in the world.
My next question for you would definitely be, you've just touched on also how filling a room with laughter and happiness and being that entertainment. Do you ever get nervous or worried when you are up on stage and you're like, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work out the way that I want?
All the time. The thing is though, with magic, no one really knows what the outcome is. I can prepare as much as I want for my show, but you cannot prepare an audience. You never know what the audience is going to do. You never know if you're going to have a dickhead in the front row.
And I think another question, given that now we're touching on the audience, how has the audience either positively or negatively affected you?
For a lot of my audience, they've never really been to a show. They might not have ever even been to like a stand-up comedy show. They don't know what to expect. My shows are also quite ambiguous, so people don't really know if it's a magic show or if it's a stand-up show or what they're... It's kind of a hard sell. If I can see the audience, especially the front row, it's really distracting if there's other things you kind of just have to pick it up. Like there's some magicians that just do a scripted show and they will never really acknowledge anything like that because they're so in the zone.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I like looking around the audience, I like engaging with people. And also like, if I was doing a show and a tree falls over and I didn't acknowledge that that tree has fallen over, I would seem like such a robot. Why are you watching me live on stage? Why wouldn't you just watch a TV show? Whereas if you're watching someone live and you've just heard something happen, that person should call that out and acknowledge it so that you feel more of a connection. You're like, oh yeah, I heard that happen too. Especially in smaller shows, like I do a lot of shows in like comedy clubs where there might be 40 people there.
Yeah.
And someone in the front row, for example, I might do a bit of crowd work and have a chat with them we're talking 3 or 4 lines in the show, but they might then misread that oh, they're now part of the show and they can chime in whenever they want. You get it a lot. You get an awful lot.
Yeah, so you would say there's also quite a bit of improv going into your shows and like you said, you have to read the room to a certain degree. And
I love crowd work as well. Like I love like getting into like especially if someone's giving me a bit, I'm not going to invite hecklers, but if someone gives me a bit of shit, I'm going to give it right back.
Touching on the maybe more emotional side to things, I would like to say, you go home from a night and the show didn't go exactly how you wanted it to go. How do you pull yourself out from, oh shit, that wasn't how that was supposed to go, this is what I have to do now, or this is what I'm going to do now to make myself, one, feel a bit better, because anyone in that position would feel, I'm not going to use the word feel like shit, but would feel just like maybe a little defeated down. And so what are some of the tools that you use to bring yourself out of that and be like, okay, my next show isn't going to be like that one, and this is what I'm going to practice, or this is what I'm going to do? If
a show doesn't really go that well, I'm like, okay, why didn't it go well? Let's try work on that. But also, it's a case of really just like being like, okay, that wasn't a great show. Firstly, how can I make it better so it might not happen again? It will happen again. I'll always have bad shows. I just came off a cruise ship contract and I had bad shows. I had quite a few bad shows because the audience, I don't want to be that guy, but like the audience weren't ideal for that situation. My thing is I try to work out why it wasn't a great show, and I try to work out, is there anything I can do about that? If there is, I'll try to change it. If not, sometimes you just take it on the chin. Like for example, if it's been raining all day, everyone's come in, they're soaked, they don't really want to watch an hour show. They bought tickets, so that's why they're there. And I think just working out like, okay, well, I am in this position and working out why I'm like being grateful for the fact I had the chance to perform in front of these people. Like I always say, a lot of people pay with their time. Like that is an hour investing into someone is a lot of time. You talk about like, let's say I'm doing a show for 200 people. That's that's like 2 weeks of
Yeah.
time. You know, that's 200 hours. It's a long time.
To have people that are spending money to spend time with you must be a super fulfilling feeling and rewarding job, and what you're doing is amazing. I think that entertaining people is a very difficult career because again, they're paying you to be able to entertain them for a certain period of time. My last question for you would just be, especially with doing crowd work and being constantly around people and entertaining, and honestly that would take a toll on anyone when you're constantly just trying to make others laugh. And what I'm wanting to ask you is, what are some ways that you come home and ground yourself after some big shows?
After a show, actually, you're so filled with adrenaline. Sometimes there has been shows where I just crash immediately, but most of the time you're like, I want to go out. When you do a residency of shows, so a month of shows, if you have a really good show one night, you want to celebrate. So you might go partying, and then the next show, the next day, is not going to be as good because you're like.
So it's that
so it's kind of flips over. But so there's an element of like not celebrating too hard because you have to think about, okay, I have to be sensible. There's a whole bunch of shows, but normally to kind of unwind. We have a pint, and we might go for 1 pint, 4 or 5. But normally, like, I'll just go home, watch a film. I kind of like my own time. I will happily sit in bed for like hours and just like chill out. A lot of magicians say this really cringy thing of like, oh, I like to bring people an element of wonder. Not that, but something about, and this is kind of you'll hear a lot of magicians say it, but actually, doing magic does bring out a childlike sense of this. Not knowing how something works is not something you get every day, but obviously it is in like, I don't know how a battery works. I don't know how microphones work. I don't know how
this is working.
Work. I don't know how phones work. I don't know how anything works. We don't think about that kind of stuff. But when you see something like, for example, the only thing I can explain it to is like when you would play peekaboo as a kid, right? You go like that. Yeah. And you were so confused at how someone could vanish and then come back. That's a magic trick. And to bring that back of someone being like, what, how the fuck did you do that? It kind of takes you off. Like, I do a lot of bits in day-to-day life where it would just take someone off if they don't know a magician. It takes, like, for example, Courtney earlier when I snapped her debit card, pretended to snap her debit card. She didn't know I was a magician. One of our friends who's here, and she was like struggling with her card all day. I was like, can I have a look at that? Oh, you've got one of the weaker ones. Snapped it, and I went, oh, and put it back.
She did lose it, by the way.
She was like, stuff like that, I think, is the fun, like little pranks and bits and stuff. Bringing people joy. We can't live without entertainment. No. You can't live without laughing. You can't live without being with your friends. Reactions like that, I'm like, okay, I made you feel that. That is a really nice feeling. And that brings me a lot of joy as well. Like, that is, maybe it's an attention-seeking thing or something, but it when you see, in the same way that like when you make a good joke in your friendship group and you hear someone laugh, you're like, I did that. Yeah. Like, that kind of feeling of, I made someone feel this way.
I also wouldn't necessarily say it's attention seeking. I would say it's like you love to make other people happy, which is a really beautiful thing. And as long as you continue to do that, I can only see positive things going for you, moving forward for you and your career. And you should be also extremely proud of yourself at 21 years old to be where you are now. You should 1,000,000% pat yourself on the back. And I think that your success is only going to go up as long as you are serving others in a positive way, and I think that is exactly what you're doing, and I can't wait to see what else you do because I think that is super fucking cool.
To Edinburgh.
I did want to say a massive thank you. It makes my heart so happy that you were the very first person on my podcast, and
thanks for having me.
I'm so grateful for your openness and your kindness towards me and other people. Like I said, again, what you're doing is amazing. I think your entertainment is phenomenal. You make me giggle the past 2 weeks, so I know that I can only see what's going to move forward for you, and I really wanted to thank you, and I'm so excited for everyone to hear what fills your cup and how the entertainment business for you has made you so happy, and I'm happy for you that you have found that happiness. Everyone, make sure you follow Luke on his socials. Obviously, check out one of his shows if you ever get the chance to. World tour coming soon.
I'm always doing I just came off doing shows in Australia. I do them in the UK a lot. Maybe the States is what I want to do, but I don't know how much the States love UK comics. They like magic though.
Come to Canada.
I do a show in New York or something. I think
that would be amazing. See you in Radio City Music Hall. Anyways, that is it for us today. I will see you guys in my next episode. Bye.